Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of We the People, presented by the Diamond Factory. Um, as you can see down on the bottom there, you can subscribe and donate to us on our YouTube channel through our Cash App, JE King 3. All proceeds go to put on our special programs like the Diamond Factory and We the People. And with that, let's get into our show tonight. Tonight, we have a mother and author with us, Miss Elena Barbera. I hope I pronounced that right.
Perfectly.
Okay.
Yes. Hello.
And we're going to talk a little bit about her book and her journey. And let's kind of get everything started here. How are you doing tonight, Elena? I hope I can call you Elena.
Absolutely. You can call me Elena. Yes, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is, the things the things I talk about on the internet are really unsavory for people. So I appreciate you having me on here because nobody wants to talk about what's happening to kids in schools.
Well, it's being my age, a grandfather, a great grandfather. It's important to me what happens to my kids in school, what happens to everyone kids in school. School is a very important part of your life, that time of your life where you learn some of your social skills and you learn how to interact with those your peers as well as those above you. So let's get a little bit of background and inspiration. What inspired you to being from being an average mother to a YouTuber and a political commentator?
Well, um, it's all happened very quickly. So back in July of 2022, my son, he was about 17 at the time, he said, "Mom, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, and will you sit with me for a reaction video?" And I said, "What's a reaction video?" I didn't even know this was like kid talk. They speak a whole other language, and he says, "You sit down next to me, and I show you things on the internet, and then you react to them and we talk." I said, "Okay." So we started. So we did this one video, and it just blew up. It took off, and all of a sudden we had a successful mother and son YouTube channel. Then about a year and a half into it, he was like, "Yeah, and during that time, I had started getting more and more political, just paying more attention, mistrusting the mainstream media, doing my own research, and seeing like everything that I ever believed in was kind of felt like a facade." And then he said to me, "I don't want to be the kid who's on the internet with his mom all the time." And he's like, "I want to do my own thing." And I was like, I was all hurt, but I understand. It's exactly what I would have said at his age. So I said, "Well, here I am. Now I have this little bit of an internet presence and a taste for this. And so I'm going to keep going." And then one day I saw, of course, mainstream media, which as I mentioned, had already begun to mistrust, talking about books being banned from schools and how, these crazy right-wing nuts were banning books. And I said, "All right, I don't trust them, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let me buy the books they're talking about and read them myself." And I did. And what I found was some of the most atrocious, vulgar materials that you could even imagine.
But now, and I'm going to go back, to my experiences in school, which is wow. As I said, I'm 78 years old. I graduated high school in 1965. And one of the books that we had to read that I see a lot of on a lot of lists was Catcher in the Rye.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our era, we thought that Catcher in the Rye was very controversial, to say the least. Uh, do you think that banning books um, is actually the way to go rather than make them age appropriate?
I do not believe the Catcher in the Rye should be banned. I'm not really sure who is asking for Catcher in the Rye to be banned, because everyone in my circle who have been working on this for, some of these people, decades. I'm relatively new on um, this crusade is, we're all talking about obscenity and like hardcore pornography that's in the schools. So Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird, I heard that it was banned in Florida, and I did a little bit of research. Within 5 minutes, I found out that it was a rumor the whole time, and it actually had never been banned in Florida. So once I saw that, I just kind of put aside the whole rest of it, because no, Catcher in the Rye. As I recall, I read it. I don't remember. I can't remember anything, egregious in it. The Supreme Court already ruled that back in the 80s, and it was in a California case that made it to SCOTUS, Island Trees School District versus Pico. In that case, the school board had removed a bunch of books from the district that they just didn't like for religious reasons, political reasons, philosophical reasons. And the Supreme Court basically said, no, you can't do that. That is a First Amendment violation. But they put an asterisk on it and said, school boards do have the right to remove pervasively vulgar books from schools to protect children from obscenities, because there are already obscenity laws in place. You can't sell a kid a Hustler magazine. You
Right.
can't show a kid a pornographic book in the park. You'll end up being criminally charged. You'll probably leave in handcuffs if they catch you. So, but why can you show a child pornography, that same exact pornography, in a library or a school? Because most states have exemption statutes where you get criminally exempted if you're a teacher or a librarian doing it. So, that's where my focus is. It is we know through common sense, through biblical sense, and also through decades of scientific research, that showing pornography to children is grooming them and is unhealthy. So I just want what's age appropriate. I want all of that taken out of the school. I don't even care. 12th graders do not need to be reading X-rated, violent, vulgar erotica and in school. There's just no reason for it. So that's where it's a long answer, but I hope I answered your question.
No, you definitely did, because we're going to get into American Groomer and some other things after I get to a little bit more background. How do you balance being a mother and a content creator and tackling such serious and controversial topics?
Well, I mean, I'm in a good place to do this because my son is now 21 years old. So, 21-year-old, I mean, he's flown the coop. So, not that you ever stop being a parent, as you know,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's not, I'm blessed to be in a place where, I don't have a bunch of little kids running around, because I don't know that I could do it if I did, because creating content, as you know, it requires a lot more than people see. It's a lot of research, a lot of connecting with people, and when you're a smaller content creator like I am, you're doing all of your own tech, and all, it's an adventure. But it's a lot, and I'm self-funded on most things. And so, like, I'm going to CPAC, the big conservative convention in Washington this week. And I'm going out there to try to get the word out even more, and get more people who have more influence to speak about this publicly. Because people, when I read them, some of these books, they're like, that can't be. Oh, that may be happening in a place like California or New York, but it certainly isn't happening here. And it's happening in all 50 states. That's the problem. And it's not a blue state issue. It is also a red state issue. So I just, how do I balance it? I just get up every day and plug away at life like everybody else, because it matters. It matters to me a lot, because I see the future of our country hinges on the education of our children.
So, what challenges have you faced in building your audience, especially in today's politically charged atmosphere?
Oh, I grew after my son and I started making, content separately. Within a few months, I got a YouTube channel of my own. I grew it to like 11,000 subscribers in just a few months, which is pretty fast. And then one day, they just shut it down. They just took my channel away and wouldn't give me a reason why, wouldn't talk to me, nothing. I was already monetized. So it's kind of crazy how they can just basically shut your business down, lock you out of. If it was a storefront, it would be like somebody coming and changing the locks, and you can't get anything for inside or sell anything anymore. So that happens. I get in trouble on Instagram. I get in trouble on TikTok all the time. Thankfully, Twitter, I really don't get in trouble too often, and Rumble lets me speak freely. So those are the challenges when you have these tech companies that are on the side of the people who are putting these books in school. But on the other side, the way I navigate it and the way I get the word out about this is I do a lot of content just about general political stuff and politics in America, and I do a lot of contents about just American culture, and or rather the decline of American culture. And so in that way, I'm able to generate more interest in my channel, and they are my TikTok and my Instagram are growing pretty steadily, and so is my Twitter. And then I mix in the content about the kids, and that's how I get it in front of people. Because if I think I just talked about the kids, people kind of tune you out.
Yeah.
It's sadly, that's the truth.
Well, a lot of people, think that, that's an area that's taken care of, but we don't have to watch, that particular area. And, I think a lot of people, because of the way our youth are perceived, uh, I think that also has a lot to do with it. Uh, but I want to get into the discussion on American Groomer. Now, I had never heard of American Groomer until I started doing my research on you and your son, and it's to me, at first I thought it was going to be, like, do you remember the pizza parlor, where there was supposed to be a child pornographic ring running back of the pizza parlor when we had those type of
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I'm like most people, I'm taking this kind of with a grain of salt, and then I looked into it, and I was uh, appalled as well as being informed. But what sparked the idea for American Groomer, and what was the most challenging part of creating the documentary?
So the spark was, I think I had told you, I bought these books and I read them. And so 2 summers ago, I was sitting around, I was visiting family up in Jersey, and we're having a giant family dinner, and there's at least a dozen of us sitting around the table. And I started telling these people, my family, what I found. And three-quarters of them turned against me and said, "We don't believe you." Like I said, if it's happening, it certainly isn't. It certainly isn't widespread, and it's not that much. This is ridiculous, and where are you getting your information? You're down some right wing, conspiracy theorist rabbit hole. That's what they thought. And I sat there, and I had one person, my little cousin, who's in the army, who was home on leave. And he's sitting there pulling up article after article, going, no, no, she's telling the truth. Look at this. Look at Oregon. Look at Washington. Look at New York. Look at all this. And at least I had an ally in the room, but I was so frustrated. And I realized that people just are going to be in denial about this. They don't know about it. And I prayed about it after that. And I prayed and I just said, what do I do? Like, I'm frustrated. People, I need to get the word out about this. I don't know how. And the movie just came to me. And that was the first title I came up with, was American Groomer. It just like fell out of the sky and came to me. Now, the challenge. So now I've decided, and here I am. I felt like I got the answer, make this film. The challenge was I didn't have a budget. I've never made a documentary before. The only video experience I have is this little experience on my son's YouTube channel, and he handled everything. I just had to show up, so it was an incredible undertaking. And I did interviews up and down the East Coast, some on the street with people, some of them with leaders of organizations that are already in this fight. And I had never done any of that before. So it was just like, I just had to buck up and learn and research and, figure out how to do this. And it was one of those, have you ever done something that you look back later and you go, whoa, how'd I get through that? Because it felt like I was just on a runaway train, and to get it done, I was just determined beyond my own strength. And so that it worked out though. And I did it on a shoestring budget. And the only help I had was with my cameraman, who went on the road with me, and he edited the film. I did everything else, but thank God I had him to edit, because otherwise it never would have been released. That is not a skill I was willing to learn.
Yeah, that can be rather tedious, as well as if you don't put it together in the right sequence, you can have a product that conveys the wrong message rather than what you.
Right. And I did all the writing and deciding all the sequences and all the shots and all that. But yeah, he did the technical editing and helped me direct a lot of the shots. So it was really an amazing experience. Very difficult on a shoestring budget, and I got a lot more respect for documentary filmmakers, and not a little bit of jealousy that they have actual teams to help with all this stuff.
Can you share a story or a moment from the film that deeply moved or shocked you?
The first thing that shocked me was it was during an interview that I learned about the obscenity exemption statutes, that I was telling you that it makes it legal to show this stuff to kids. But one of the things that really hit home, the very first interview I did was up in Boston with my pastor and his wife, because I had been living in Boston for a long time. And so I interviewed them about these books, showing them everything. And that was the first interview I had ever done in my whole life. So, and I had been watching to practice. I had just been watching Tucker Carlson interviews to, try to figure out how to do this. And I said to them afterwards, I said, all right, how'd I do? Because I know them well enough, at least, that I was comfortable. And they were like, oh, you did great. You asked good questions. It was a good conversation. He said, but when you showed us these books, your voice cracked. You seemed very uncomfortable. And I was like, well, it is uncomfortable. It's terrible showing this stuff to people. The very next day, the cameraman and I were in New York, and we went to Times Square. And I walked up to people on the street, holding a microphone, showing them these pornographic images and excerpts from the books. And we got in a cab to go back to the hotel after that filming. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? Yesterday in Boston, my voice cracked when I was doing this. Today I was in Times Square, just walking up to people, talking about anal masturbation. And look at me. I, as a grown woman, in one day have been groomed to become comfortable with this conversation. In one day. What would this do to a child? And how fast can you groom a child to think that it's okay and appropriate to talk about these things with everybody? So that for me really struck how powerful this stuff can be on somebody's mind.
Interesting. You know, Boston to New York. Yeah, that can be somewhat of a culture shock. But as you said, and there are a lot of things that you can approach New Yorkers on the street about that. as you said, it's, oh, okay, that's cool.
No, most people were not cool with it. Most
No, I
people,
don't mean it in
it
this.
was me that changed in that day. It was me that I was just like, yeah, after a while, like you say it enough times, man, you're just like, you think it's normal to walk up to people and be like, hey, what do you think about this anal masturbation lesson? Like it's crazy. It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah. Uh, and especially when you look at the great change that that particular area in itself has gone through, because Times Square used to live off pornography.
Yes.
you know, uh, Goes to show you how old I am, right? so,
I remember that. I was a little girl. I remember that. Yeah. I remember driving through and my dad pointing out like the look, don't grow up to be like that, you know?
yeah, I mean, the it was a whole different type of culture back in the 70s, late 60s, 80s. Hey, Studio 54, I mean, debauchery, the whole 9 yards.
Well, it's heading back that way because now you can just walk around smoking pot and right there on the street. It's not it got really cleaned up and turned into like a little Disneyland, and it's not anymore.
Let's talk about that kind of uh, decline. No, let's get back to your call of action here first, because we were talking about the American Groomer. So, what reactions have you received from parents, educators, and lawmakers about your documentary?
So parents are shocked. They're really now starting to, when they see it, they're thanking me for making the film. They're asking me what they can do, which is exactly what I wanted out of it. I wanted them to say, okay, I'm mad. I get it. What do I do? Um, I haven't talked to too many lawmakers. I've talked to a couple here in Florida, and they are on board, with protecting children. But I haven't seen enough action, even locally here, to be excited yet about that children are going to be protected here, even in Florida. You would think it's taboo here. It's not. I mean, it's still happening across the state. Um, Other people in this fight who've been in this fight for way longer, and they were like screaming into the void and no one was listening to them, they are extremely grateful, and they have, they've told me that they loved the film and they loved how I presented the information and the history of how we got here in a concise, fast way. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I talk fast. I was like, I just got to get people the information they need. It's only 36 minutes long and it moves quickly. So, but I had to get all the important points in, and I was able to do that. So hearing from them was a huge compliment. But then there's opponents who just, they'll say I'm lying. They'll say, I'm just a crazy right-wing prude who doesn't know anything. And that's why I don't want kids to have sex ed. And it's like, I didn't say kids shouldn't have sex ed, but I do stand that, James, the sex ed that you got before you graduated high school in 1965 was enough. And and even before health, as they called it, sex ed was in schools, the human race did all right and figured it out for, thousands of years. We don't really need to teach children these things. And we're not just talking to them about the birds and the bees like back in the day. We're talking to them about kink, orgies, sexual preferences, masturbation techniques, sex toys. I mean, it's just appalling. It's appalling what we're doing to our kids.
Now, one question I do have to ask you, because you mentioned it a couple times, and that's the right wing, and the convention that you're going to. Did you encounter uh, opposition on the left? Or why isn't this a bipartisan effort?
That's such an excellent question, because you would think that everybody would want to protect children from this. So I guess it depends on what news you talk to, because when I talk to people who are left leaning, they say I just want to hurt free speech and ban books, and I want to harm children by keeping things out of their hands. When I they'll say that I am a racist if there's a character in the book, in a pornographic book, that happens to be black, now I'm a racist. If there's a character in the book that's transgender, now I'm a transphobe. If there's a gay person in the book, I'm a homophobe. So they take this identity politics and they hide behind it, and that's what they're saying, that I'm a transphobe, and that's why I want the book gender queer removed. No, I want the book gender queer removed because of the graphic sex scenes in it. I want it removed because it teaches kids about sex shops and sex toys. It teaches kids about a website called kink.com, which is as graphic and violent S&M as it gets. Why does that need to be in a middle school for an 11-year-old to look at? So they are convinced, and they hear those talking points, that it's just about, that I'm a bigot, and they don't open the pages of the book and read it for themselves. Where on the right, people are more open-minded, and they will listen to me when I say there's pornography, and I'll say, they're not obsessed with identity politics, so they will look at it and listen to me read from the book and say, wow, we do need to get that out of get that out. The mainstream media on the left is running cover for these books, and unfortunately it's my job to break through that noise. Yeah. And it's a shame, because we should all be protecting children together. This should not be controversial or partisan at all, but it is.
No, I mean, I do consider myself probably a lot more left leaning than you. But
Mm-hmm.
when I went through the material, you have to. We're talking about children. It doesn't matter uh, what the political affiliation is. We're
Thank you. I'm
talking
so glad to hear that.
we're talking about young minds and the forming of young minds. But kind of like I said, it would seem that this would be a bipartisan effort, and it shouldn't become a political football. But we'll get into that as our conversation goes on, because I want to talk about the cultural and political commentary. We go into cultural decline. In your view, what is the biggest contributor of America's cultural decline, and how do we reverse them?
Wow. Gosh. I mean, there's a few things that I would say, are top five. I'll start with, the replacing God with self idolatry, and that was a slow, things that sounded nice, like self esteem in the 80s. Remember, everybody, all of a sudden we all just had our feelings and lived, and then all of a sudden we talked about self esteem, and that was a break where we started obsessing on ourselves, and it's created a culture of selfishness, and instead of a culture of actually, kindness and thinking about putting others first. There's also been a tremendous decline in, biblical godly principles, and I wasn't always, somebody that was really into the Bible. I certainly am now, but uh, I was still raised on certain principles, like, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill and lie. And those things that now, have become normalized. We normalized theft by not prosecuting criminals. We have normalized killing by telling young women that abortion is just like a normal thing, like getting a tooth pulled, and it's a right, instead of a moral dilemma, which in my day, it was, when I knew people who were going through a pregnancy that was unexpected. It was a real moral dilemma for them, not just like, whatever, I'll just get rid of it. So taking away morality, taking away God, putting my own wants, needs, desires above everything else has contributed to a breakdown in society, a breakdown in more marriages, a breakdown in the family unit. And it's really sad. And then you throw the internet in there, and oh my goodness, we're just sitting around poisoning our minds all day and night, even though we have every bit of knowledge we could ever want about any wonderful thing in the world. Most people use it to just watch videos on TikTok of people like doing stupid stuff or fighting. It's just nuts. We have to, as parents and grandparents, take control of the youth again and really start feeding their minds, with healthy, wholesome content, and and good values, and not just you be whatever you want to be and you step on whoever you want to step on to get there. 'Cause that's kind of how I feel like where we're at now. That's
Now, do you think now, or because I look at, uh, and I'll go back to a lot of us coming home from Vietnam.
mm,
Um, the whole point was to make life better for your family, to make sure that your kids did not have to go through the same things that you went through. So, therefore, and this is just my opinion, uh, therefore, we gave rather than having to make them earn. I had to earn my allowance. I had to do certain things in order to get rewarded. Maybe it was shoveling the snow off the driveway. Maybe it was cutting the grass. Maybe it was washing the dishes. But I learned that in order for me to be rewarded, I had to do something. When most of us came back, we had the idea that we have to give everything to our families, and we have to make sure that our kids want for nothing, and we spoiled the product, uh, or the child, because we thought giving them things
yes.
them love us.
Yeah.
Did you find that? I mean, so the cultural decline, to me, has been a constant shift. Even now, you when your child graduates from high school, they get a car, or they get this, or they get that. I mean, uh, I think that perhaps we don't give our children that sense of responsibility. What is your thoughts here?
Yeah, you're so spot on that parenting is one of the major contributors, of our cultural decline. And yeah, we don't give our children responsibility. And what we do is we don't teach them how to. We don't allow. We shield them from so much suffering to the point, of shielding them from any discomfort that they don't know how to suffer well. They don't even know how to take the word no or an insult and shake it off and carry on. And so that the generation that was also my parents' generation that said, we want to give materially to show love, which I was the recipient of. And then, the next generation where, I raised my kid, I it was kind of a mix of making sure he had everything he wanted. And I was also a little hard on him, and I did make him do chores and stuff, because I saw some people, their kids didn't know how to like put a dish in the dishwasher or take the trash out. And I'm like, what do I'd talk to a friend and they'd be like, oh, I gotta still take the trash out. I'm like, you got 4 boys in the house. What are you doing? they can take the trash out, you know. So I'm glad I had a little bit of sense about me, but my son was raised during that everybody gets a trophy generation, and you just for showing up you get a trophy. And you know what we did with those, and sometimes he would get a trophy for achieving something, and I would say, this one that you earned, that's the one. This other one is garbage, say goodbye to it, and we throw it out. And I was a little tougher on him, and I'm grateful, because I think I probably should have been still tougher on him. but the kids, where they kept all those trophies as if they were actually special, when you don't get an award for showing up. And now we've created this group of entitled, spoiled people who you can't say no to. If they don't get their way, they literally protest if they don't get their way. There was last year, forgive me, I think it was in Chicago, no, it was in Pennsylvania somewhere, actually. This coffee shop, the owner, this real estate company owned a couple of coffee shops in town, and the employees wanted to unionize. I mean, this is a small business. A small restaurant coffee shop is maybe making a 10% profit margin if they're doing everything right. And they want to unionize, and they want all this stuff. And they started protesting against the owner, and the owner just said, you know what? Forget it. And just pulled the plug, just shut the businesses down. Like, I don't need this. I'm a realtor. I was opening a coffee shop because I thought it would be fun and a nice way to meet customers and, you know, mingle with the community. And he shut the business down. And then they protested outside the shuttered business, saying because they should have been able to get a union. And it's like, you're pouring coffee. Like, what do you do? Like, what monsters have we created by spoiling them to this point? So yeah, I have a lot to say about your assertion that parents have contributed to cultural decline, because we absolutely have. We absolutely have.
Uh, so, how did you respond to critics who labeled your content as diversive or reactionary?
You know, on my best days, just respond politely and try to tell them, provide them with proof of what I'm saying, provide them with facts wherever I can. Some people are just downright insulting, and try to say a prayer for them and carry on and not get mad. Every now and then, one of them will get under my skin. The best I can do is just say, all right, well, I've given you information, and if you refuse to acknowledge a fact, what am I going to do? You could lead a horse to water. You can't convince somebody. It's one thing to say we can both look at the same car or piece of furniture and acknowledge that's a black Lincoln. Okay. And I can say, I don't like it, and here's why. And you can say, that's my favorite car of all time, and here's why. We can disagree, but we at least have to agree that that's a black Lincoln Town Car sitting in front of us, and it's not a Maserati. And what the problem that we're facing now is people won't even look at actual facts if the fact, plays against what they want to believe. And you can't talk to somebody that you can't have a real conversation about an issue with somebody that won't even acknowledge data or historical fact.
Yeah, that that was one of the problems that I had when I first started into podcasting. Like you said, we can both agree that that's a Lincoln, uh, but sometimes well, yeah, it's a Lincoln, but this one has silver door handles. Or yeah, it's a Lincoln, but this one has a better stereo. You know, but
Right.
and I used to get caught up in that, in my early podcasts because I did let a lot of my emotion and my own politics interfere with giving a decent and informative interview. So I do understand, when you get frustrated, when people, you know, don't recognize facts, but want to argue, the little small things that that get in the way of actually making progress.
Yes. Yes, and when I tell you I'm a praying woman, a lot of the times I'm praying for like patience and humility and kindness. Like I'm literally praying, like, please help me to respond well, to whatever you throw at me today. Because I'm still me,
Yeah, right.
So I get you. Like, yeah, it's not always diplomatic. It doesn't necessarily, like again, I said, I'm from Brooklyn, right? So we're who we are in general. I'm Italian and Irish, and I'm going to stereotype myself. Like, well, I'm one of the quiet ones in my family, and we can be a little tough. I come from a little bit of a tough family, so it's hard to change yourself to become more diplomatic and temperate when you want to have an interesting conversation with somebody. So I feel you.
Yeah, I graduated high school in Newark, so that'll tell you a little bit about
Kidding.
my
Yeah,
disposition.
yeah,
Also,
right. Okay, we're not that different. Not that different. Yeah.
right.
I mean, you mellow with age, right? I mean, hopefully.
Right, yeah, and that is true. You do mellow with age. It's taken me 3/4 of a century to find that out, but yeah, you do mellow with age.
I'll pray for you too.
you know, uh, uh, so this is a subject here that I kind of don't understand the concept, but I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you, what is woke politics?
It's it now it's just a catchphrase, right? That I don't even use it so much anymore because I think it started out as this phrase where people were saying that they've woken up to what that there was corruption in the justice system, or they've woken up to embedded racism, or they've woken up to misogyny. And now that's just morphed into this, in my opinion, this communistic progressivism, hatred for anything sane or traditional, hatred for anything conservative, and there's a lot of hatred for all religious people of all denominations that it's morphed into. I think when wokeism started, it was more of just an annoyance. Again, like people just looking for problems where, there may have been a small problem and they were turning mountains into molehills, in my opinion. Like the Me Too movement, I thought was kind of an atrocious way to set women back, because you had women who said that they were, asked out on a date at work. They were calling that sexual harassment, or if somebody said you look nice today, they were calling that sexual harassment, and like, saying they were Me Too'd when, they went and diminished women who were really sexually assaulted and really treated badly. So that was one example that where wokeism started with this, like, I just want to be a part of something. And they turned, they just turned it into a monster. I'm not sure if I have a really good answer for the woke politics thing, because I think it's already kind of moved out.
Okay,
But
okay.
maybe I'm wrong. What do you think?
No, I don't. I think woke, in the sense of woke politics, was another one of those things that started out with good intentions,
Yeah.
but as you said, it's back to the Lincoln. Well, mine has silver door handles. Uh, it's still a Lincoln, though, right? you know,
Right.
uh, you know, you know, uh, I have a better stereo system, but it's still a Lincoln, right?
Yeah, no, it's a Pinto. Like that's where we're at now. Yeah.
you know, but uh, I think for some communities, there was a sense of, uh, you know, we do need to be included more. And I think, there are certain uh, minorities and problems that need to be addressed more, like for instance, pornography in schools. I mean, like I said, regardless of my politics, I don't want my son, in sixth or seventh grade, looking at, you know, uh, uh, any type of pornography.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Trust me, you don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So and that should not be, to me, a political football. As I said, there are some things that are common sense. Protection of your children is should be one of them. Um, how can conservatives and moderates reclaim the narrative in education, media, and culture?
Well, one of the ways that we can do it is to get to shine a light on what's happening on the reality. So there's a couple realities. Of course, there's the porn in schools. People need to know the reality there. The next reality that people need to know is that we're spending more money than we ever have in American history per student in our schools. Yet only 40% of our children can read at grade level. Less than that are at grade level in math. I mean, how is that even possible that before the Department of Education was formed in 1980, we were the number one educated population on Earth, and now we are down to like 24 or 25 when we spend more than anybody else. So people need to just wake up to the facts of the reality that school has just become a giant administrative state. And when we take out all this extra stuff, the unions are more concerned with the unions than they are with the child's education and the child's success, no matter what they say. Oh, it's about the children. No, it's not. If it was about the children would all be able to read. You know, if it was about the children, you would take the violent children and remove them from the classroom so the rest of them could learn. But, they have these soft discipline policies in schools now because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So they just keep these kids coming back and disrupting classrooms all day long. I mean, there are 1,000 things wrong that we have to let people know about. And we have to, I believe, and busing kids around, because the busing, it's an interesting thing, but it was done under the guise of you know desegregating neighborhoods and getting all the kids mixed in together. But all it really did was spend millions of dollars. Like Boston, for example, they still bus kids. They spend about $170 million a year on transporting kids around the neighborhoods. Why don't they put that money into the neighborhood schools, and then people who, oh, God
Excuse me.
bless you, God bless you, people who live around those schools, then those parents can be involved in that school. But when you put your kid on a bus and he goes way across town, you don't know the teacher, you're not popping in. They don't know you. There's nobody, no parents overseeing anything anymore. They destroyed communities by doing that. So there's a lot of things that are simple changes that could happen that would pour more money and resources into the schools and pour parents back into the schools. But they don't want us involved, because the more involved parents are, the fewer opportunities they have to put the books that teach your kid how to take a nude picture of themselves without getting caught. That's in one of these books. So that's a thing. And I tell people all the time, if you have any possible means to homeschool your children, do it. It used to be that, we used to say, remember, the homeschooling kids had this stigma, like they were going to be weird or antisocial. And it's just, the more I've learned about it, it's just not true. They homeschool in pods. They're still on sports teams. They travel with their families because they have more freedom. And they actually do better on standardized testing because there aren't all these distractions and all this nonsense. They don't have to celebrate Pride Week in school, which is like, why are children celebrating anybody's sexuality? We gotta
But
peel back the layers.
but now you have kids that are coming to school that do have two mommies or two daddies,
Yep.
and when uh, kids are very curious. They come home with questions. Why does Johnny have two daddies?
Sure.
So I mean, there are some realities now. I mean, that those were things that even if they were in the home back in my day, were things that were not uh, visible or or actively accepted so readily as they are today. There are some things that I think that we cannot. Uh, we can no longer shield our children from today because they are assaulted by it on a daily basis. And if you don't explain it to them, they can come up just as uh, damaged as a child that is actually going through a situation. At least that's my opinion.
Well,
Mm.
I agree with you. I don't think we should. I'm not suggesting that children should be shielded from everything. I'm not suggesting they should ever treat a child badly if the child has two mommies or two daddies, or lives with their grandparents because mommy and daddy disappeared, or which is
Right,
unfortunately
right,
also very common. Um, I don't suggest any of that. What I suggest, though, is that it is not the school's job to decide morality for families. And it's not the government's morality shouldn't be imposed upon a child. And unfortunately, that's for parents to discuss that kind of stuff. Now, if a kid says, Mrs. Appletree, why does Johnny have two daddies? Mrs. Appletree can give that just say, that's everybody's family is different, and that's how Johnny's is. Let's move on. Instead of giving a whole lecture on sexuality to 5-year-olds. And then you could go home and ask your parents why Johnny has two daddies, and let them talk about it in a way that they feel is morally appropriate for their family. That's all I say. I don't suggest that we pretend that things aren't happening in the world, because that's not useful to anybody.
oh, definitely, definitely. You talk about faith and morality, and we talk about faith's role in society. Um, I am a lot of people, that are very surprised by the fact that I'm a preacher's kid, but I also, because of my experience, do not believe in organized religion. Um, Going through the jungles of Vietnam, and I have had my faith tested, and because I don't necessarily worship as a Baptist or as a Methodist or as a Catholic, um, people tend to think that there is no morality and that you're faithless, at least in my point, from my
Hmm.
point of view. But because you do not put a title on your particular uh, person of belief, people think that, excuse me, as I said, that you do not believe in a higher power, which is totally wrong. Uh, but I would like to know how your faith shapes your approach to politics and cultural commentary.
Well, first of all, it's really interesting that you have that experience, that they think that you have to be affiliated with a particular denomination in order to, like, prove your faith. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. That sounds like
Right. Right.
Wild to me. Yeah.
I've come through the system. I've been through an Episcopal house, a foster home. My father was Baptist, and then he went to African Episcopal. But I find that people think that because of my background, uh, you know, uh, that I should be, this faith or that faith. But I've also found, it's not just the Catholic Church that is corrupt, and I don't mean that, in the well, no, I do mean that in the sense of
Yeah.
how they indoctrinate children, and we have had
Yeah.
cases where we've seen young men assaulted, young women assaulted,
Yeah.
in these uh, different faiths, which has really kind of, to me, proven my point. Is that uh, whatever denomination you belong to does not, does not make you right, nor does it make you a person that really follows the commitments of that faith. You just use that as a title, which I find very hypocritical, and I would rather be an agnostic than be a hypocrite. So, as I said, I know, shaping my approach to politics, I'm still thinking of, the separation of church and state. But yet I remember during my time in school, we had to say the Pledge of Allegiance. We had to say the Lord's Prayer after, before class started. Those were rituals. Now, those are things that are under assault. And I
Yeah.
think that just like the sexual conversation, this is another conversation that should also start in the home. It's not the responsibility of the school to teach you about faith.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think as a nation, if we never taught children anything about faith in school, but parents were teaching children about faith and about following, God's word, then I think we'd be in a far better place. It wouldn't, and that's part of the problem too, right? Parents aren't necessarily filling their children with a solid sense of morality either, because you've got these some parents who like just don't want to hurt their kids' feelings or don't want to disrupt them, and the as a I was raised Catholic, very ritualistic religion, as you know. You got the baptisms, the sacrament, the communion, the confirmation, all the sacraments, and a lot of rules.
Well, I was an acolyte. I went through the whole thing.
Yeah, right. And now I roll with the Southern Baptists, but it's because the church that I belong to is just teaches the Bible. And when I have any questions now in my life, I turn to the Bible, and I don't say I'm a Catholic or I'm a Baptist. It's really a mentality of I'm a follower of Christ, and I'm trying very hard to live the way he taught us to live. And it's super complicated because there's a lot of stuff that just flies in my face of what I've flies in the face of what I want to believe or I want to feel or the world has taught me. And then I'm reading something and I'm thinking, wow, I really got to wrestle with this now. And I trust him more than I trust the world. So, okay, I'm going to go with this. But part of, that is something that, we're missing, because parents are also have also become very self-absorbed, and they want to do what they want to do. And they're more interested in putting a phone in their kid's hand and looking at TikTok themselves than having important conversations with their kids. Unfortunately, we all see a lot of that. As for you, um, one of the things that is in the Bible that Jesus talks about is fellowship with other believers. And, whether that's through a church or through a small group, Bible discussion, or even I think two gathered in his name is the church.
Right.
You and I talking about him right now is a gathering, a fellowship gathering, right? So I don't think you I don't know what that means. I'm not a super advanced theologian. I'm still learning, but as long as you're engaging in fellowship with other Christians and talking about this, I think that kind of probably fulfills that requirement, even because if you couldn't get to a church, you wouldn't be remiss. So I don't think you need to be part of a formalized organization. If you're a believer and you're following and doing your best to be Christ-like and follow his ways, I'm pretty sure he's watching and he's seeing that. And he's not going to say, yeah, but you didn't throw anything. You didn't throw anything in the can on Sunday,
Yeah. That's a whole different conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just think anybody that's telling you that because you're not, I don't know if that's a biblically sound advice that they're giving you. So,
Well, people tend to, it depends upon the circumstance whether they want to quote from the Old Testament or the New Testament. Yeah. Uh, so.
well, the Old Testament, well, I'll say to that, it's funny because the Old Testament is just the precursor to the New Testament, and Jesus is in the Old Testament. He's on page 1 because he is God. And it's so funny, like people separate the two, but they're the more I learn, they're extremely intricately interwoven. So taking things out of context in the Bible is never a good idea.
Well, most scholars, use the Old Testament as the God of wrath, and the New Testament as the benevolent God, the forgiving God. But the Old Testament is all fire and brimstone. So
There's a lot of fire and brimstone, but there's also a lot of love and a lot of saving.
Oh,
And yeah.
But that it was how we used to kind of disseminate, between the two testaments rather than looking at the Bible as a whole. But what did you think about some of the cabinet choices and the influence of Mr. Musk? And what's your take on the current political landscape?
The current political landscape, I mean, I am conservative. I am a Trump voter. I am getting an awful lot of what I voted for. So I am happy to see that he's fulfilling his promises. I'm happy to see that he's taking a stand against gender ideology for children, because we've just taken a whole generation and medicalized them and messed with their minds and convinced, and these children are going to be left sterilized and confused. And mutilated in many cases, and it's just horrible. I was very, very closely watching a lot of the crimes, unfortunately, that were committed by illegal aliens here in this country. Jocelyn Nungray's murder, Laken Riley, Rachel Moore, and Ivory Smith. Like so many people who have lost their lives to what ended up just being an really irresponsible treating of the border by the Biden administration. And I'm sorry if some people are going to be are good people who are going to leave, but they did break the law coming in here. And I am all for immigration, and I would love to see people come back who are going to be contributors here, come back in through the front door afterwards. But I'm glad to see that this burden is being lifted from the American people. I mean, people, as far as Elon Musk, the amount of government waste and corruption that he is exposing is mind-boggling. And I just don't know how anybody's going to pay their taxes this year with a good conscience and with any faith that the government's going to do the right thing.
But we've given him $2 trillion in one project for SpaceX.
Mm-hmm.
he would give him another $308 million uh, for future automated cars and things like that. Uh,
That
don't
all
you?
came from the Biden, and I mean that was all done during the Biden administration. So I don't.
Well,
Nobody.
this was just within the last week that he got the $2 trillion, and then I think it was 2 days ago that uh, Trump gave him the $308 million.
Well, I'll have to look at. I'll have to look into it because I heard about this 2 days ago, and I also heard the exactly what I just said. It was provide that was all. It all came out a couple days ago that he received this money, but it all had come during the Biden administration. I'll look into it though because I'm not going to argue with you over something I
Yeah.
haven't spent a lot of time on. Certainly not. Yeah, if
But
it's a Lincoln,
what I was,
it's a Lincoln. Yeah.
but what I was thinking is we haven't heard any programs for the homeless or for some of as a matter of fact, I just put up an article for my next show where we've cut a lot of benefits to veterans, especially veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq. And I was, I'm thinking of, like, shouldn't some of what's going on go to direct to some of our domestic programs? What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. So I haven't seen anything also on, I'm glad you're telling me about, cuts. I did see one cut that 1,000 people were cut from the VA. So there's 450,000 employees there. 1,000 people who were relatively new, all less than a year or two tenure that they've been there. They're non-union employees and they were not mission critical at all. And they're saving $100 million a year that they're redirecting back into other services for veterans. So that's all the extent of what I've heard. I didn't hear that specific cuts were made at all. What I'm seeing right now is we're handling the most crucial things first. The most crucial thing that was a danger was the 8 to 20 million people who were here illegally and being paid for with tax dollars, while there is a massive homelessness crisis, while there's an energy crisis, while there's an economic crisis for the average American. The rich people are doing great. The average American can't get a mortgage. Even if they're in a house they can't afford, they can't move to another house because even if they get a smaller house, the mortgage will be more because the interest rates are so high. So we're all like trapped rats economically. So like these are things that need to be handled first. And one way to do that is to look at the government and do a deep dive audit. And we're seeing that. And I'm personally, I'm all for it. Do I want veterans to be treated better? Absolutely. And I actually believe that he will. He had a plan for homelessness as part of his Agenda 47, platform. And, he talked about creating centers, like concentration centers. That sounds like concentration camps. It's obviously not it.
No.
Where he brings homeless people into them. So in one fell swoop, clean up the streets, get a lot of drugs and crime off the streets, because a lot of these homeless encampments, unfortunately, that's what we have. And then take these people and have doctors and psychiatrists and, services to get them into homes, placement homes, medical care, and just like help them and, divide them. And he said it really more eloquently, like they're the group of people who are homeless, who really are just hard on their luck. Like those people, just immediately get them into jobs, get them into homes, get them back on their feet. The rest of them, they need drug rehab services. They need alcohol services. They need massive medical care and psychiatric care. Get them what they need and try to, and that way everybody benefits at once. I don't know where that is in the pipeline, but I actually have been doing, I started kind of an audit of comparing his Agenda 47 platform to what he's doing. And I just did a podcast on it the other day on my podcast channel about, I just did one on his border promises, because that was enough to fill a whole podcast episode. And then, you can't just, this is definitely not one episode worth of stuff. And I'll say, to critics, so why hasn't he done this or that yet? And today is 4 weeks that he's been the president, and he's done there's so much happening. And back to Musk, people are complaining, oh, why he has our social security numbers. I mean, the guy owned PayPal. He had our social security numbers. Everybody in China has our social security numbers. Like the IRS, all unelected officials, they all have them. The DMV in your state has them. Every bank you've ever done business with, every school you've ever gone to has your social security number. All just regular people in jobs have them. Like, to say Elon Musk is going to do something sinister with my social security number, what he was he going to take out a $17 loan on my name? Like, I'm not worried about it. I just don't think it's a big enough concern. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that. Like, if you think I'm missing something and I should be more concerned than I am, I'd love to hear it. But, it's just like, it just seems like these aren't real concerns. I think when somebody comes in and they show you where the waste and corruption is, like, that's somebody you want to be paying attention to, not trying to knock down. That's how I see it anyway.
As I said, we draw different conclusions from different numbers, because I still remember the $8 trillion that was so-called the national debt. But I am one of those that I definitely believe that there is waste in government, but I do think that they're attacking the wrong place. I think that most of the waste in government comes from the Department of Defense, not from domestic programs.
But they're doing an audit there too. Yeah, they're doing an audit there too.
We've been auditing the Department of Defense since Eisenhower was president.
So these audits that we're seeing now are like nothing we've ever seen. I mean, I think we could probably agree on that.
But let's talk a little bit about your future endeavors here. I'm sorry I ran over a little bit. I told you it would only be 75 minutes, but we did have some very interesting dialogue, and I wouldn't want to have stopped that
Quite
at all.
All right, I'm enjoying myself. Thank you.
So, what can we expect from you and your Patriots Prayer Network podcast? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So on Friday nights at 9, I have a show on the Patriots Prayer Network, and that's a network that was built by a guy named Eddie Smith, and he pulled together like lone wolf podcasters from around the country who are all like me, like just regular people who were going about their business and then just decided they needed to kind of stand up for their country and start talking about what they were learning, and they got tired of being, canceled. So he brought us all together, and we all have shows on this network, and it's really a lot of fun. And a bunch of us are going to be at CPAC, the convention in DC this week. So a lot of these people I've been working with online, I'm going to get to meet in person for the first time, which is very cool. And then, I also have a podcast on my own Rumble channel on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where I talk a lot about the kids and the books, and I talk about the politics and Agenda 47, and which is whatever's going on in the week. And I have some special guests about once a week or every other week. I'll bring a guest on and just have, hear what they're doing. And I like to learn about, other people who are out there in the world of activists trying to, make a change and see what they're up to. So I'm just going to keep plugging forward with trying to get the truth out, the kids being my main priority. And, I just want to get our schools back to a place where if people are going to keep sending their kids to school, that kid's going to come home, knowing how to read and write and do math, and, not necessarily know anything about somebody's sexual preferences. I didn't know my teacher's sexual preferences, and I still don't want to know them. I don't need to know. I don't need to think about what my grandparents did to build a family line. I don't want to know. And there's no reason a kid should ever have to be thinking like that.
No, okay. It's interesting that you're in Florida. I have a nephew that actually graduated high school in the state of Florida. But as you said, he couldn't read and he couldn't do anything above ninth grade math. And I actually had to buy comic books to teach my nephew how to read because this is what he was interested in. Me giving him a regular book
Yeah.
was futile. You have to find something that the kids are interested in and a way to reach them.
Yeah.
And I was, as I said, I was appalled by the fact that he had been passed on and passed
It's
on and
terrible.
passed on without actually really, we had standardization tests. We had different tests that you had to go from junior high to high school. You had to pass that ninth grade test in order to get to 10th grade.
Yeah.
You had to pass that seventh grade test in order to get to eighth grade. You had to have certain skills in order for you to advance. I'm going to go back, to the parents here because our current economics are such that in most cases both parents have to work.
Yeah.
Therefore, those sit down dinners with your kids. I remember when we talked about key latch kids.
Yeah.
We have gone far beyond that now. If you see your child, 2 or 3 times a week, except on the weekend, if you have a meaningful conversation more than twice a week, your family is extraordinary. Whereas I remember, everybody, on Sunday, everybody came over to grandma's house or somebody's house, and we all sat down.
Yeah.
You had the little kids table over. It was a family gathering. We don't have those anymore. How do you advance those family values when we have eroded them so much between trying to play and balance that with taking care of our families? Like you said, most it's hard to get a mortgage. That that ideal that we grew up with, with a family, 2 cars, a dog, and two, and a child and a half. Those, are basically, pipe dreams to a certain extent because, our youth uh, are not educated. They can't find somewhere, if they are building a family, that's an added pressure because of the circumstances. Like I said, you and the wife have to work, so forth and so on. How do you go back to the family values when we are so caught up in I want to say the torture of keeping up with the Joneses?
I mean, that's a loaded question, and there's a lot. That's a lot that needs to happen, right? I mean, we have to reprice. First of all, we have to take our morality and our back from the government, and we, as the elders in our family, need to be instilling certain values and practices and priorities in our families. We have to make family a priority and not just lip service in talk. We have to rejigger our financial priorities. I see a lot of people say, "Oh, we can't afford whatever, this or that," but every kid in the house has their own bedroom. I shared a bedroom. Right? There were 4 girls, Two of my sisters shared one bedroom. Me and my other sister shared a bedroom. She beat me
Do,
up all
do
the
they
time.
do
You
they
know,
sell bunk beds anymore? I mean, yeah.
yeah, right. Like, why does every kid need their own room? Why does everybody need their own car? Does everybody need their own $1,000 cell phone? And you have to have the $300 cable package. Like, people aren't willing to sacrifice and live simpler in order to, make family a priority. If they don't have 2 vacations a year, they feel like a failure. I'm like, I can't remember the last time I went on a vacation, like an actual vacation. The only time I get on a plane is if somebody dies, like, and I got to go to a funeral, or a business trip. And that's just me. Like, yeah, would it be nice? Sure. But it's not the end all be all. I would rather, I'd like to see people, reconsider faith, because, I can tell you, for me, having a stronger faith has given me more peace than any other thing that I've ever tried in my whole life, and given me more contentment with whatever situation I'm in, even when it's not ideal. We have to stop, when you're sexualizing kids, right? And then sex just becomes this casual thing. You end up not attaching to a partner, and partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives become disposable, instead of people really, attaching to each other and saying, we're going to stick it out, and, do what we can to ride through life together. And, there's just so many things now, and celebrating. People get a divorce, they have divorce parties. It's like, this isn't something to celebrate. This is sad. We have to treat it like it really is, instead of making it a celebration of my freedom and my truth. And there is no your truth. Like, we got to get real with people. There's just the truth. Forget your truth. I mean, I could go on all day. There's so much that we need to change. And I guess the bottom line is, the way we do it is to talk about it, and speak the truth to the young people, and say, just pursuing your selfish pursuits, man, you're going to end up old and empty and alone, and you're not going to be happy, and it's going to be very sad, and it's going to come at you real fast, even though you think it's not.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right? Like 5 minutes ago, you were 20, weren't you? Yeah, me too.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so, what have you learned about yourself through the journey as the based mother?
Oh, I've learned that I love doing research and sharing information with people. Um, I love learning, and I really enjoy this content creation life. Sometimes I make mistakes, and I'm even okay with that, because I am the kind of person, if I make a mistake online, I just apologize, and I say, well, that stinks, and I'm embarrassed, and I apologize. I've done that. It's happened publicly, and I just got to learn to try really hard to to not make mistakes and not be reactive, because with so much information coming at us, it's super easy to just have an emotional reaction or make an assumption. And that 9 out of 10 times, those things have a way of coming back and boomeranging you right in the face. So i've just I've just learned that I need to be slower and more deliberate. But I do really enjoy this, and I enjoy the relationships and that I'm making. And, like, I love having conversations with you. Like, how would I ever know you? We live on opposite coasts. We'll probably, we're not going to bump into each other and have a conversation like this, even if we were in the same coffee shop. Probably not. So this is, I don't know. I've learned that I really enjoy uh, learning about people too.
Yeah, that's. I think in order for you to be successful in any part of life, you have to know people. You have to interact with other people, and otherwise, you don't have a full and rounded uh, uh, sense of purpose. Uh, to me, which is why I got into podcasting to begin with, a sense of purpose. and you do run into some very interesting people, and it is uh, encouraging when you can have a uh, conversation between the two sides, such as us, and not get into a shouting match. Things I used to, things that I've learned over the years.
I know. I mean, I think we agree on more than we disagree on. I think it's clear. And you gave me a couple of things that I have to go look up now, and I'm willing to. I'm not just going to say no, you're wrong. Like, of course not. Like, I'm going to go check some stuff out. And if I find out that you're right, I'm going to be mad, not at you. I'm going to, I don't want veterans losing services. So,
No,
and I will spit and I will say that, I if I see the president do something I disagree with, I don't have any problem saying that. I mean, he's not Jesus. Like, I don't, he's the president. And I didn't, I don't, so I can't, I love that we can do that we can have a conversation like this. And I really appreciate the the generosity of your time to have a conversation with me.
if you could leave one message for the next generation of Americans, what would it be?
Um, I'm gonna go Jesus on this one. I'm gonna say get to know God. Get to know God, because there's another life after this one that's way longer than this one. And it's worth living for.
Hmm. Okay, it's very interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, every time, like I said earlier, I have a dilemma. The answer is in the Bible. Like, when people say, "Oh, there's no manual for life," I'm like, I found it. There really is.
yeah.
Yeah, or it found me.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you find your path. A lot of people go through life and never find their path. Um, I spent a lot of time, as I said, searching for mine, and I found that uh, my path was helping others, uh, and not. Being one that has to have a lot of praise or heaped on them or be at the forefront. I kind of like to be the I don't want to be the general. I want to be the one that advises the general.
Mm, yes, I like that. Yeah, that's a pretty cool role.
you know. Uh, but yes, these are very uh, harsh times that we're going through on both sides of the aisle. I think we do need to come to some kind of middle of the road. We can't right now. I think this nation is more divided than what it was when I came back home in 1972.
Mm.
And I do think that if we don't work together, we cannot divide it. We can't stand as a nation divided. But that is
Yeah.
a
Well,
conversation for a different time.
yeah, that's a tough one, because there's the divides are different than they used to be. It's not just political divides; there are moral divides now that are whole different animals. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. We have issues that we never had before. Like,
Well, you have to. Yeah, I think that that's the thing that you have to blame on the information age or the internet, because we have instant access to either side of what you want to argue. We can make numbers say what we want them to say now, and it's become like I said, a nation instant gratification. We want everything now, and we weren't. This is not the way. The way of society. Societies are slow built. Organisms. They're not. Uh, you know, Anymore. We cannot stand to be isolationists because there's so much information out there, and not only that, there's is a lot of people out there that are trying to advance their own agenda rather than the agenda of the human race. So, uh,
Oh, yeah, we agree. We agree. Yeah. All that. All that. Yes.
yeah, so I did enjoy my time talking with you.
Me
I would
too.
like maybe to, after 120 days or so, have you come back and we can talk about, some of the progress that's been made and, you know, how things have progressed or digressed. Would that be acceptable to you?
Absolutely. I would love to talk to you again. I'm so happy to have met you. This is, yes. Yes. You let me know. You just let me know. I'll be back.
Thank you so much. Do you have some final thoughts for our viewers before I let you go?
No, if you don't mind, I'd love to just tell them where they can find the film if they want to learn about my issue. It's free.
Sure.
It's a free film to watch. It's only 36 minutes, and you can watch it at americangroomerfilm.com. And you can reach me on the website and tell me what you think, or tell me off if you disagree. Whatever you feel, I want to hear it. So thank you. Thanks for giving me a minute to do that.
Oh yes. Uh, yes. That's now. You mentioned that you were on some other social media.
Yeah, so I am called the Based Mother, BASED, Based Mother on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and also on Rumble.
All right. Make sure our audience has that information, and I'm sure after listening, there will be other people that will definitely join you. So thank you so much again, and I appreciate your time and look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
All right. You have
Bye
a
bye.
great
You
bye.
too. Good night.
Good night. Uh, yes, that was our guest for this evening, Miss Elena Barbera, and we thank her for her time. Uh, I try to make sure that we have an equal mix of the other side of the coin. As I said, and most people know, I am definitely one that leans toward the left. But we also want to know what is happening on the right. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you all. And as I said, you can look on the bottom there. You can subscribe and donate to our YouTube channel. Our Cash App is $ JEK3. And join us this Friday. We will have a special program uh, that will be dedicated to the halftime show at Super Bowl 59. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.